If you have reached this video today, it was no accident, and it was certainly not the algorithm. Over the last 3 days, you have felt something you could not name. Perhaps you woke up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, staring at the ceiling, your mind racing as if something were about to happen. Perhaps you felt a tiredness that does not come from the body, but from carrying decisions you have been postponing for months. Perhaps a banal conversation, a phrase overheard in passing. A repeating number on the clock made your chest tighten for a second, without any logical explanation. This is not a coincidence. This is the universe opening a crack, and you are among the few who can still feel when that crack opens. Today I'm going to show you exactly what is happening inside you, why July 12th is not just any date on your internal calendar, and what you need to do in the coming days so you do not let this window close like so many others have closed in your past. July 12th marks the beginning of an inner revelation. It is not an astronomical event that changes the world from the outside in. It is the opposite. It is a symbolic tipping point where each person's inner world begins to push to the surface everything that was being ignored. The universe does not change suddenly. It does not decide out of the blue to grant you clarity, money, a new love, or a new path. What it does is much simpler and much more relentless. It reveals who was already ready to take the next step. Think of it like a rising tide. The tide does not create the rock or the boat. It only shows what was poorly fastened, what was cracked, what could no longer withstand staying in the same place. Dates like this act as a truth amplifier. They do not invent new problems in your life. They turn up the volume on what you already knew and pretended not to know. If you have been avoiding a conversation, it will scream louder inside you. If you have been ignoring a call to change direction, it will knock on the door with more insistence. And if you have been feeling, over the last few weeks, that something was moving beneath the surface of your routine, now you have the confirmation that you are not imagining things. This means one uncomfortable yet necessary thing. July 12th will not fix anything for you. It will only throw wide open what needs to be fixed. And here is the first major difference between someone who lives waiting for a miracle and someone who is truly ready for a new stage. Those who wait for a miracle will look at this energy and ask it to erase their problems. Those who are ready will look at this same energy and ask, what is this trying to show me about myself? This question changes everything. It transforms a period of emotional instability into a period of valuable data about your own life. And that is exactly why, in the next few minutes, I will teach you how to read the signs that are already happening inside you, so that you are no longer someone dragged by the tide, but someone who uses the tide to position themselves exactly where they need to be. Let's talk now about the signs that indicate this change has already begun inside you, because it is quite likely that you are already experiencing at least 3 or 4 of them without having connected the dots yet. The first sign usually appears in sleep. Dreams that are more vivid, longer, sometimes repetitive, sometimes featuring people from the past you have not seen in years, sometimes with scenarios that seem more real than being awake. This happens because, during sleep, the mind reduces the rational censorship we use all day long to protect ourselves from facing certain truths. What remains repressed during the day rises to the surface at night. If your dreams have changed in intensity over the last few weeks, that is a direct indicator that something within you is processing a transition, even if your conscious life still seems the same. The second sign is restlessness with no apparent cause. You are fine, your life is working, nothing serious has happened, yet there is a feeling that something is missing, or that something needs to change, and you cannot name what. This restlessness is not anxiety in the clinical sense. It is more like an internal compass warning you that your current route is no longer compatible with who you are becoming. The third sign is fatigue without a physical explanation. You sleep, you rest, but you still feel a weight and exhaustion that is not of the body but of the mind, holding on to loose ends, postponed decisions, swallowed words, old versions of yourself that you still carry out of habit and not out of necessity. The fourth sign, perhaps the clearest of all, is synchronicities, repeated numbers. A person you are thinking about appearing out of nowhere, information that arrives exactly when you needed it. The rational mind calls this coincidence. But when these events accumulate in a short period, they cease to be statistically irrelevant and become a pattern, and a pattern is information. And there is also a fifth sign, silent, but perhaps the most decisive: the loss of interest in old routines. What used to distract you before, that infinite scroll, that conversation that led nowhere, that environment that once seemed comfortable, now feels too small for you. This is not depression or apathy. It is the classic symptom of a person who has already grown beyond the space they occupied, but who has not yet taken the physical step corresponding to this internal growth. If two or more of these signs are present in your life right now, you are not having a bad phase. You are in the middle of a real transformation process, and your body and mind are just reacting to something that your soul has already decided even before you rationally understood it. Think for a moment about how a seismograph works. It does not create the earthquake. It only records on the surface a movement that was already happening in the deep layers of the earth long before any tremor could be felt in the open air. The signs we have listed here work in exactly the same way inside you. The vivid dream, the strange fatigue, the synchronicity that gives you goosebumps for a second, all of this is the seismograph needle moving. The question was never whether there is movement. The movement is already happening, whether you pay attention to it or not. The real question is whether you will read the record in time to position yourself, or if you will continue with your back to the panel while the ground reorganizes itself beneath your feet. The vast majority of people, when feeling these signs, will do exactly the wrong thing. They will blame stress, they will blame work, they will blame a bad night's sleep, and they will keep pushing through life without stopping to listen. For these people, the window will open and close without them ever realizing it existed. But you, who are watching this video up to this point, very likely belong to a different group. You are someone who already suspected that there was something more going on, and that in itself is a sign that you have the internal infrastructure to use this window consciously, rather than just suffering through it. It was precisely for people like you, who feel the signs but don't yet know how to turn them into practical direction, that I prepared Magia, 28 Exercicios, as 28 Chaves do Despertar. It is a 28-day journey, the equivalent of a complete lunar cycle, built to transform this restlessness you are feeling now into clear language, to integrate what you have been avoiding seeing in yourself, and to convert the loose signs we listed here into real decisions, one at a time, without vague mysticism and without empty promises. If you felt that at least two of these signs describe exactly what you are experiencing now, comment the word pronto down below. This comment is not just an interaction, it is a record that you are choosing to pay attention. And the first pinned comment on this video has all the details on how to join the journey while this window is still open. Returning to what really matters now, why do some people recognize these signs and others simply let them pass by? The difference is not in the intensity of the signs. Two people can live through the exact same sequence of vivid dreams, fatigue, and synchronicities, and yet end this phase in completely different places. The first person will look at all of this and call it a coincidence, a rough patch, or accumulated stress. They will seek any explanation that allows them to continue in the exact same life, with the same habits, with the same people, with the same excuses. This is not a conscious choice most of the time. It is a protection mechanism. Facing the signs as a call to change means admitting that something in your current life isn't working, and that is uncomfortable enough for the mind to prefer to erase the message before even reading it in full. The second person will do something different and, in appearance, much simpler. They will stop. That's it. They will pause for a few minutes, observe what they are feeling, and ask themselves what this sensation is trying to say about the direction of their own life. It is not about having an instant mystical revelation. It is about the willingness to observe without running away from one's own mind. The difference between these two people is not a spiritual gift. It is not luck, and it is not destiny. It is willingness. And willingness is a choice, available to anyone who decides to make that choice now, including you. This brings us to a point that must be clear before you move forward. The universe is not testing your faith in an abstract way. It is testing something much more concrete, which is what you are willing to let go of before opening a new stage. Every real process of transition confronts a person with three specific things: the fears they have never faced head-on, the attachments they know no longer make sense, but continue to hold on to out of habit or fear of the void, and the pending decisions they have been putting off for too long. There is no shortcut here. A new chapter does not open on top of an old, poorly closed one. Think of a house. You don't build a second floor on a cracked foundation and expect it to hold. First, you need to acknowledge the crack, understand where it came from, and only then reinforce the base. True change begins exactly at the moment a person decides, consciously and not just emotionally, to leave behind what is no longer aligned with the growth they claim to want. And here is something few people tell you. This process hurts, and it is right that it hurts. Letting go of a relationship that no longer nourishes, letting go of a professional identity that no longer represents who you are, letting go of the comfortable narrative of being a victim of circumstances, all of this generates real discomfort. But this discomfort is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is a sign that you are finally walking after a long time standing still. A portal, in this sense, is not an astronomical event with magical power of its own. It is the exact turning point where the cost of remaining trapped in your current life becomes greater than the fear of taking the next step. You take the step, and only then does the ground appear beneath your foot, never before. That is the logic that governs any real transformation, and it is also the logic that separates those who truly change from those who only talk about changing for years. Notice that there is a common trap at this point in the process, and it is worth naming it so that you do not fall into it. The trap is waiting to feel total courage before acting. This never happens. No one lets go of an old attachment, a comfortable routine, or a worn-out identity feeling 100% secure. Courage in practice appears after the first movement, not before it. It is an effect, not a cause. While you wait to feel ready to let go, the attachment itself strengthens. Because every time you decide not to decide, the brain registers this non-decision as safety and reinforces the old pattern once more. That is why moments of transition do not require full courage. They only require a small imperfect movement in the direction opposite to the habit. The rest organizes itself afterward, exactly like the ground that only appears after the step. If you are feeling, as you hear this now, that there is something specific you know you need to let go of, but have not yet had the courage to admit out loud, write the word "coragem" in the comments below. You don't need to detail what it is. Just writing the word is an act of recognition, and recognition is the first brick of any real change. Now, knowing what is being tested, let's talk about how you align yourself in practice with this new energetic stage that is opening from July 12th onwards. The first action is to observe your own dominant thoughts without judgment, just with attention. For a few days, notice where your mind repeatedly returns when it is free, without external stimulus, in the shower, in traffic, before falling asleep. These recurring thoughts reveal exactly what your mind considers unresolved, and unresolved is synonymous with real priority, even if you have tried to push it off until later. The second action is to strengthen intuition, and this is not abstract. It is a muscle that is trained with practice, starting with small decisions. Before asking for external opinions on everything, ask yourself first what feels right, and then compare. Over time, your ability to recognize your own inner voice, distinct from fear and distinct from the opinions of others, becomes sharper. The third action is to reduce mental noise, which in practice means cutting back on excessive content consumption, notifications, and constant comparison with the lives of others. It is not about romanticized isolation. It is about creating enough space for silence so that the signals we have already discussed can be heard, because a mind always saturated with external stimuli has no capacity to perceive internal subtlety. The fourth action is to practice gratitude in a specific, not generic way. Instead of vaguely being thankful for life, name exactly 3 concrete things every day, because specificity trains the brain to look for evidence that life is, indeed, working in your favor, which reduces the scarcity mindset that sabotages most important decisions. And the fifth action, the most demanding of all, is to act in accordance with the person you wish to become, not in accordance with the person you have been until now out of habit. This means making small daily decisions consistent with the new version of yourself even before you feel fully ready. Because identity does not change first and then act differently. It changes through the repetition of different actions. Coherence between intention and action is the only real criterion that separates genuine transformation from intention that never leaves the paper. None of these 5 actions is complicated in isolation. Observing thoughts, training intuition, reducing noise, naming gratitude, acting with coherence. Each one of them, alone, seems too small to change an entire life. And that is exactly where most people miscalculate. They judge the size of the action by the size of the result they expect to see that same day. And since the immediate result is usually invisible, they abandon the practice before the cumulative effect appears. But real transformation never works like a light switch that turns everything on at once. It works like compound interest, small, repeated, invisible for weeks and then suddenly obvious. The person who practices these 5 actions for 28 days in a row is not the same person who started, not because a miracle happened on the 28th day, but because each of the 27 previous days was deposited, one on top of the other, until they formed a base new enough to sustain decisions that previously seemed impossible. It was precisely to structure these 5 actions, so they do not remain loose as good intentions that get lost after a week, that Magia M28 Exercicios exists. It is no longer just a theory course on spirituality. It is the practical bridge between what you are understanding here now and the physical reality of your life 28 days from now. Each of the 28 exercises works on a specific layer, recognizing the soul's signals, integrating the shadow instead of running from it, transforming restlessness into clarity and clarity into decision. If you have arrived here feeling that perhaps it is your turn to stop wasting the windows of opportunity life offers you, this is the moment to act, because the structure that sustains the difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it is exactly what is pinned in the first comment of this video. We arrive then at the real meaning of July 12th for those who are ready to move forward. This date does not determine anyone's destiny. No date does. What it does is function as a reminder etched into the calendar, a reference point for you to stop, even if only for a few minutes, and make conscious decisions instead of letting another period pass by on autopilot. The people who will look back a year from now and say that everything changed starting in July will not say so because the universe did something for them. They will say it because during those days they chose to pay attention to the signs instead of ignoring them, chose to let go of what needed to be let go of instead of continuing to hold on, and chose to act in accordance with who they wanted to become instead of repeating the usual autopilot. The question that remains is not whether the universe will deliver something to you from now on. The question is whether you will recognize the signs that are already present in your life at this very moment, and whether you will take on this change as a personal choice rather than as something that happens to you from the outside in. Before you leave this video, there is one last decision to make, and it is simple. The signs we described here, the more vivid dreams, the unexplained tiredness, the synchronicities, the quiet restlessness, they will not stop on their own. They will keep knocking until some action is taken. You have already acknowledged that you are feeling at least part of this. Now the real choice is, will you turn this recognition into structured direction, or will you let another window close like so many others before it? If the answer is that this time is different, the first pinned comment on this video has everything you need to join Magia M28 Exercicios before this specific window closes, and commenting now, even if it's just one word, is the first concrete act of coherence between what you felt listening to this and what you are actually going to do next. And if you are not subscribed to this channel yet, understand one important thing. This video is not an isolated piece. It is a coordinate within a much larger map, built throughout the entire year, about energetic windows, portals, and stages of transformation that connect to one another. Those who watch only a single loose video receive only a fragment of the story. Those who subscribe and follow the sequence understand the complete context behind every date, every sign, and every decision that will appear in the coming months. Missing the sequence is losing the entire map, and the map is exactly what separates those who understand what is happening from those who only feel it without understanding. What you have heard up to here was only the preparation. The full revelation about what this window means for your next stage of life is in the video that is already appearing on your screen now. Click on it. The first 60 seconds of that next video will change the way you see everything we have discussed so far, and it is exactly there that your timeline, starting today, begins to truly reorganize itself.